It's Bill and Wendy from Carolina Capital Management. We have a special guest with us, Jonathan Davis, who actually does all the work.
He's the third leg of our stool. And we lean on his leg the most, right?
He's the only leg. We're just here for show.
He's right here. Don't say that in front of me.
Too kind. Yeah.
So, we always talk about, I know, by the way, please like us and share and what else? Oh,
Twitter and Instapop and
Instapop. Now, isn't that something that you cook with?
I think it is. It's Instapot.
That's right. And CarolinaHardMoney.com is the website.
That last time I checked, that was correct.
Good. So I got that out of the way. Yeah. One of the things that we always talk about is the importance of being involved in mastermind groups. Networking is very important. And then obviously self-improvement.
Yeah.
I'm going to self-promote this.
That's right.
All right.
Getting better at being great.
So now Jonathan and Wendy had an opportunity to join a mastermind group of ours.
Freedom Founders.
On a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And the subject was, if you woke up the next day, you got the newspaper. Of course, nobody gets the newspaper. So if you read the headlines on the internet.
Right.
And Carolina Capital has lost 50% of its business.
That's right.
What do you do first after you cry?
Right, right. It was called the Apocalypse Test, and it was really, really cool. So a little more detail about where we were. We were with other trusted advisors that are in this Freedom Founders group. So it was a great opportunity not only to see the folks that we get to, we don't really get to see them a lot when we're at the bigger events because we're talking to possible lenders and other people like that. So it was really nice to be able to.
It was refreshing to get other business owners' takes on what you do in that scenario and what they are doing now.
That's right. That's right.
It's a great tool. Yeah.
We got a great peek inside of their businesses, their operation, and they got a good peek inside of ours as well. And it's really good because it's not like, judging, hey, how well are you doing and how well are you doing? It's, hey, what are you doing that I can mooch and figure out, copy, because, we don't make these things up. We really just take other people's ideas and improve upon them.
Exactly. We don't we just employ their current strategies.
That's right. That's right. And they do the same with us, and we're glad to do that.
And I was going to say, it's not necessarily improve upon them. It's just make them your own.
Exactly.
Everybody's business is a little bit different. So you're just I'm going to use the $5 word, extrapolate what they use into our business.
He's a big boy.
We're always kidding Jonathan about his $5 word.
Yeah, he's got big words. He's a big word guy. So he's rubbing off on us.
Our words are like $1.70.
Well, is hey y'all one of them?
Yeah.
But anyway, it was really cool to be able to kind of, sit down and think about what would happen if you have that old crap moment where, have you done a stress test? That's really what the question was. Have you done a stress test? And I was very proud of us because we have.
Yes.
We didn't do it, I think, as in depth as we did at this meeting, and it made us think even more, but we have been doing this stress test, and we were really excited about what we already have in place, and now we have even more to put in place for something like that. So,
and it's a great, thought process to go through. It's what do you do in those scenarios, which is great. And it gets the juices flowing of what are we doing now to prepare for those, not what we do after it happens,
right?
But what are we doing now to say, all right, if this happens, not only do we have a plan in place, but we're in a better position than most people.
That's exactly right. And, we're not running around going, the sky is falling, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
Although it is. No, I'm just kidding. It's not falling, but there's going to be a correction. We know that that's going to happen. We've been on this 12-year run that usually is 7 to 8, if you go back historically, on when corrections or adjustments in the market take place. That happens about every 7 or 8 years. And we're in year 12 right now.
Yeah.
And or 11 and 12. And we know there's something coming down the pike. And, we constantly look at what Warren Buffett did, right? It made him even richer because he was smart. He knew what was coming down the pike. or he didn't know exactly when 2008 was going to happen.
Yeah.
But he was well aware it was coming down the pike, and he was prepared. He sold off the things that would have made him the most money, and he sat on cash until that correction took place, and then he started buying things up. Right.
Yeah. And it's so funny how, the wisdom in that you're selling off assets that would have made you a lot of money, but knowing that those are the assets that are maybe not favorable to own if that correction or whatever it is happens. So it's that discipline part
exactly.
of it.
And they were probably the most liquid at the time, and that's another reason why you sell
Yeah.
those. Now, it's not just about normal market cycles, because it's really hard to predict that. What's the most tough to predict are black swan events,
Right.
Yeah.
like the corona beer virus.
Gosh. That is the most Googled search.
I had to laugh about that when I heard that corona beer the corona beer virus is the most Googled search phrase.
I must be out of it. I don't know anything about that.
And apparently you cure that with Lyme disease.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay,
I
so
love it.
that said,
Yeah.
we're going to give you a little bit of an exercise to go through, and what we did to kind of look at our numbers.
Yeah. And we're going to kind of give you an outline of what they suggested that we might want to take a look at. And then we're going to do another part, because it'll probably take a while for us to go all through all of these things. And we want to kind of tell you what we had set up for us to tackle what we're doing. And what's really neat, what I really liked about when we first started talking about this is in 2019, January 2019, we made some huge changes in the way we do our business. We, let go of our sales team, which was crazy, but that we felt like that's what God was leading us to do. And I'm really glad we did it. And we let go of a very key, highly paid employee as well.
Correct.
We changed our direction of what we were lending on. We're now, we lowered our average loan amount on our single family. We tried to get that down into the bread and butter market area. We changed who we're lending to. We changed a lot of things, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah, essentially what we did was we made sure that the assets that we were lending on are the assets that are the highest prized, the ones that are going to be utilized the most in any economic situation.
Right.
So we try to stay in the affordable housing market. That's a market where your first-time home buyers are coming in, your people that are downsized are coming in. If the market changes, people can't afford as much, they still need a place to live.
Right.
Yep.
So that's the area we want to be in, because the market is not going to affect that nearly as much.
Right.
And if you have to dump assets, they're the most liquid and the easiest to get rid of, because like I said, they're in that sweet spot.
That's right. And, we being in the market that we're in, especially in the Charlotte market with how well everything's going in the Charlotte market, for us to no longer do these, high-end loans where the after repaired values are between 500,000 up to, even $1 million.
Yeah.
Cutting those off was Warren Buffett crazy.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right thing to do at that time in everyone else's eyes. And, to a lot of people, we were looking like fools, but I'd rather be a fool before all this happens than after.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
Now, keep in mind, that doesn't mean we don't do those loans. We just don't hold them in our fund.
Yeah, that's true too.
One of the beauties of this marketplace right now is that there's plenty of institutional investors that like that type of property. And
Yep, you're right.
we'll go ahead and do the loan, and then we just sell it off to them. It's just not in our portfolio.
Right. With nothing
And
we want
don't
to
have that risk.
Right. We don't want to hang on to that. Huh?
So what about internally? What are some things that we need to do to internally as a business make sure that we're lean and mean, as it were?
Right.
So my first response to that would be, one is stress testing your portfolio, making sure that every asset can stand on its own. Not that, we blend it all together and, aggregately it looks good. The weighted average coupon is this, the, weighted LTV is this. Those are all great things. And those are the things that a lot of these companies that have built machines that they have to feed look at,
that are run by bean counters.
So
Not that that's a bad thing.
what we want to do is say, okay, what is our average exposure in each market?
Mhm.
What are the average rents in that market? And then what does that yield us if we have to pivot and turn everything into a rental?
Right.
And, you all hit on it before. It's, those higher loan values, while they make you more money in the short term, they sit on the market longer. And then when you can rent them out, I mean, you're not renting them out for the yield that you would need.
Right.
So kind of like the benchmark would be a 6% yield is what you want to get.
Right. Since that's the preferred rate.
Yeah, since that's the
Mhm.
preferred rate, it kind of works out, huh?
Right.
So if you look at our average loan size of 2019, we are looking at a 156 loan amount.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just take an 800 monthly rent payment, which you can get 800 in almost any market.
Easily. That
Easily.
would be low, actually. Yeah.
If you took that and said, okay, if we had to rent it, here's what we have. We're getting 800 a month. That's like 6.13, something like that, 6.13 yield.
Mm-hmm.
So it passes that stress test.
Right.
If you run that same thing on a 450 loan amount, even if you're getting 15 or 1800 bucks a month, it doesn't pass.
Right. Right.
So, stress testing that, say, okay, that asset doesn't stand on its own. We need to do something with that one.
Right.
Because if the market changes, that is not a favorable asset that we want in our portfolio.
And that points back to our commercial side too.
Yes.
How we're kind of really getting a good handle on our absolute focus and what we're doing on the commercial side. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So what we do on commercial is we're looking at mostly multifamily. So when we say commercial, we're saying multifamily typically.
We don't want any gas stations.
No, we don't want any gas stations. And
Not looking for a bar.
And typically what we're looking at is multi-tenant.
Well, you are. But
I want a marina with a bar.
There you go. A strip center with a bar in it. Yeah.
We're looking no pole in the middle.
Yeah, not strip club, strip center.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah. But we're looking at multi-tenanted, non-owner occupied. And in that same breath, what we're talking about, that we're focusing more on multifamily because the same thing we just talked about the single family. If we move into a correction or whatever that market does, we want to say, okay, we're expecting a 6 yield and we can get a 6 yield here. But if I have a, owner occupied, single tenant asset that's commercial, let's just say, I don't know. I drove this morning. I saw office condo. I saw a Sherwin-Williams going into, 1 unit, little standalone brick and mortar. Like that's not something I want in our portfolio if this happens, because if people stop buying paint to do rehabs, Sherwin-Williams is going to go out of business there. Right. And then you're holding a shell that you can't rent out.
That's exactly
because
right.
There's no demand.
Same thing with the doctor's office.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, typically, if you have a national chain that does a triple net lease on a single property like that, like a, let's just
Walgreens
say,
or
or that'd be a good one. Yeah.
Some of your dollar stores, those are fine. But even if they back out of it and they pay money, it's still going to sit empty for a while.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's fine for some of the bigger funds, but we're not one
that's
of the
not
bigger
us.
funds.
That's
And
right.
our fund is not designed for the long-term loan anyway. It's designed for the short-term acquisition
Correct.
with stabilization.
Yeah.
And we love the multi-tenanted commercial market. It doesn't always have to be multifamily. That's the best. That's the sweet spot. But self-storage, like you said earlier, strip centers, office. Strip centers tend to be a little more, I want to say, higher maintenance, because a strip center is depending on bringing in people off the street.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
So you have to do a
Gotta
foot.
look pretty.
You said foot. You have to do a facelift
A foot
on a
lift.
strip
Foot
center.
lift.
About every 10 years, you got to spruce the place up to make it more attractive to people driving down the main road.
Because there's new ones going on all up and down the street.
Right.
Gotta
And you don't have to do that with office. And, of course, you're going to do continual maintenance and upkeep on an apartment complex to keep it looking good. but those are really the sweet spots in the commercial side.
So it sounds like we're going after the simple, easy deals.
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And so, one of the case studies you look at, let's say Blackstone, who proved the model of going in and buying a bunch of rentals,
Mm-hmm.
weathering them for quite some time,
Mm-hmm.
and then exiting them in a high market.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we're, on a smaller scale, what we're looking to do. We're looking to turn a calamity into an opportunity.
Right.
Where, okay, yeah, we can sit on these. We don't panic. We don't hit the panic button. We don't say, oh my gosh, foreclose and, create all of these issues that we
Right.
have from the last foreclosure crisis. We say, okay, we know what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. And when the market changes, because we know it will,
Yep.
here's how we profit off of it.
Right.
Here's how our investors profit off of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. The other thing that I really like that we seem to have spent a lot of time on that I really didn't think about, and I didn't want to think about it because it hurts my heart, but the lien list that they were talking about, getting lean, making sure, we've got 11 people that are here, who would we get rid of first? We had to go backwards and go, who is the last person we could get rid of?
Mm-hmm.
And it was tough to go through that because you don't even want to think about something like that. But, you do what you have to do. And I think going through that exercise was a surprise to all of us.
Absolutely.
To really sit there and think about,
The big surprise is I was the first to go.
Oh, it was no surprise. Sorry, Burrow, you left yourself open with that one. But it was very interesting when you look at your different team members and you think, what is it, what that person brings to the table? What else can they learn?
Mm-hmm.
What do I not have to do?
Yeah.
I mean, it was eye-opening, and gosh, I hope we never have to get to that point where we ever have to do that. But it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's get in a little more detail on that on the next segment.
Sure.
Because we're going to have to do this in 2 parts.
Oh, yeah.
We only have about a minute and a half left on this. So let's talk about stress testing your portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, let's take a portfolio, and how much do you think we can take from it or lose? And if it's still making money, is that stress enough? For example, let's say that we had to write down, or we had a loss on 25% of the portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Is the rest of the portfolio
strong enough,
still making money?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Assuming that 50% loss in the market kind of thing. This is where we're just saying, hey, if 25% of our portfolio went bad tomorrow for whatever reason, non-market related, what would happen to the overall?
If we lost our interest payments on 25%.
Yeah.
Now, assuming, because we lend to builders.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have to take those properties and rent them out. So
Sure.
There's going to be a gap in time.
Yeah.
Between the time we're having to foreclose or take them back and the time we get them rented and up and running.
Yeah.
So if you're doing this same kind of test, do this over your portfolio.
Yep.
If you can take 25% of the income and you're still making money, at least for 6 to 9 months.
Yeah. How long can you go with that?
Mm-hmm. And you want to be able to last at least 6 to 9 months.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of the threshold there where you want to be the minimum is 6 to 9 months. The answer to your question is yes. I mean, when we stress test it, we can lose 25% of our income and still provide above pref returns to our investors.
Yeah. Woohoo. We like that. We like that.
Okay. So as the alarm goes, we're out of time for this segment. So thank you so much for joining us. We got part 2 on the next episode.
Absolutely.
Please remember to share and
like us
and
tell all your friends.
Yeah, I think we have some other videos that you can get to that are archived on either above, below, to the
There's
side of the
links
screen.
around here somewhere. You'll find them.
Scott does a great job of putting these things up there and making us all look good.
Just don't put them as a mustache on my face. That would not.
CarolinaHardMoney.com. If you have any questions, we'll see you on the next show. Thank you so much for joining us again. Really had an awesome time. I know Wendy did as well. well.
Woohoo!
So if you like what you heard and want to see more, what do we do?
You can hit one of these. I feel like the hippy dippy weather girl because we've got a green screen going on. So we could have a cold front moving in from Virginia, or, right? Oh, come on, that's funny. I don't care who you are. So you can pick any of these other shows. We have some here. We have some here. We have some here. Just pick one, test it out, right?
Yeah. Also, subscribe, like, and our website is easy. www.
That's a lot of W's.
CarolinaHardMoney.com.
Tell all your friends.